is deadly.
Nonsense, dear. We've been eating these for years. They're delicious in salads.
The streets of New York City hum with life, but in Times Square, death is whispering. It's April 2025, and a graining CCTV feed captures a chilling moment. A woman in a gray scarf, clutching a bouquet of glowing white flowers, stumbles outside a cafe. Her face is pale, her hands trembling as she gasps for air. She collapses, the flowers scattering across the pavement like fallen stars. Paramedics rush in, but it's too late. The camera pans to a flower stall across the square where Ethan Gray stands, his face unreadable, his hands buried in a pile of petals. A voice cuts through the static. Was it the flowers that killed her, or a secret hidden in their scent? Welcome to The Poison Bloom, a true crime story that'll grip you till the end. Ethan Gray was no ordinary florist. At 35, he was a fixture in Times Square, his stall a burst of color against the city's gray. His flowers were magic, roses that lasted weeks, lilies that turned heads. But in March 2025, he introduced something new, the moon glow, a white bloom that shimmered under neon lights. Its scent was intoxicating, sweet yet sharp, like a memory you couldn't place. New Yorkers went wild for it. Brides carried moonglows down aisles, CEOs tucked them into vases, and tourists snapped photos with them. Ethan's stall was a circus, his soft voice charming every customer. "Fresh from my supplier," he'd say, his smile never reaching his eyes. But something about that smile caught Detective Eliza Hart's attention, a 32-year-old cop with a knack for spotting lies. Eliza had passed Ethan's stall a month ago, buying a moonglow for her desk. The scent hit her hard, sweet but with an edge that left her dizzy. She tossed it the next day, but the unease lingered. On April 17th, her phone rang at 3:04 a.m., pulling her from a restless sleep. Her partner, Sam Torres, was on the line. "Got a body outside a cafe in Times Square," he said, his voice heavy. "Woman, mid-40s, no obvious cause." Eliza was there in minutes, the square quieter than usual, its lights casting long shadows. The woman, identified as Carolyn Reed, a gallery owner, lay sprawled on the pavement, her gray scarf tangled around her neck. No blood, no wounds, just a faint flush on her cheeks and a moonglow bouquet clutched in her hand. Eliza knelt, the scent hitting her like a wave. "Sam," she said, her voice low, "check her purchase history. I want to know when she bought these flowers." By morning, the news was buzzing. Gallery owner's mysterious death in Times Square. Carolyn's autopsy was inconclusive. No drugs, no heart failure, just elevated toxins in her blood. Too vague to pin down. But Eliza dug deeper. Carolyn's assistant said she'd bought moonglows a month ago, keeping them in her office ever since. She'd been sick lately. Headaches, nausea, nothing serious until now. Eliza's mind raced. She headed to Ethan's stall, the square alive with chatter. Ethan was there, trimming stems, his hands steady. "Detective Hart," he said, his voice warm but his eyes guarded. "Heard about Carolyn. Tragic." Eliza leaned closer, her gaze sharp. "Your flowers were with her, Ethan. Any idea why she'd collapse like that?" His smile didn't falter. "Flowers don't kill people, Detective. Maybe she was allergic." Eliza wasn't buying it. She sent the bouquet to the lab, her headache returning as she bagged it. Sam called with a lead. 2 other deaths in the past week, a lawyer and a hedge fund manager, both moonglow buyers, both sick for weeks before collapsing. Autopsy showed the same vague toxins, no clear cause. Eliza stood in her precinct office, the city's hum filtering through the window. She pinned photos to a board. Carolyn, the lawyer, the manager, all smiling, all dead. A receipt from Carolyn's assistant showed she'd bought the flowers exactly 32 days ago. Eliza's gut twisted. Was it a coincidence, or was something in those flowers building up, slow and deadly? She called the lab, pressing for results, but they needed time. Time she didn't have. That night, Eliza walked through Times Square, the neon lights harsh against her eyes. Ethan's stall was closed, but a single moonglow lay on the counter, its petals glowing faintly. She froze. her hand hovering over it. A shadow moved behind the stall, too quick to catch. Her heart pounded. She called Sam. "Get a warrant for Ethan's stall. I want every flower tested." Back at her apartment, she couldn't shake the scent like it was stuck in her lungs. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Careful, detective. Some blooms bite." She stared at the screen, the city's lights flickering outside. Someone was watching, and they knew her name. The next day, Eliza visited Carolyn's gallery, a sleek space filled with art and silence. The assistant, a nervous young woman, handed over a guest book. Carolyn was obsessed with those flowers, kept them by her desk, said they calmed her. She flipped through the pages, stopping at a name. Ethan Gray, signed a month ago, the day Carolyn bought the moonglows. Why was a florist at an art gallery? She drove to Ethan's supplier, a greenhouse in Brooklyn, but the owner was cagey. "Ethan picks his own stock," he said, avoiding her eyes. "Don't know where he gets those white ones." Eliza's phone buzzed again. Sam, with news. "Lab found something in the petals. Trace chemicals. Not enough to kill yet." Her blood ran cold. The moonglow wasn't just a flower. It was a weapon, and Ethan was holding the trigger. The streets of New York City never sleep. But in April 2025, they're whispering death. Times Square pulses with light, but the glow of Ethan Gray's flower stall hides a secret. The moonglow, a white bloom with a scent that lingers like a ghost, is killing people, slowly, silently. Detective Eliza Hart knows it's no coincidence. 3 deaths, all tied to those flowers, all with the same story. Headaches, nausea, then collapse, a month after purchase. Caroline Reed, a gallery owner, was the latest, her body cold on the pavement, a moonglow bouquet in her hand. Eliza is chasing a killer, but the killer might be a flower. Or is it the man selling them? Welcome back to the poison bloom, where every petal hides a lie. Eliza stood in her precinct office, the city's hum a dull roar outside. The lab report on Caroline's moonglow was on her desk, and it wasn't good. Trace chemicals, unidentified but toxic, were in the petals. Not enough to kill outright, but enough to build up over weeks. The lawyer and hedge fund manager who died had the same toxins in their blood, their symptoms starting a month after buying Ethan's flowers. Eliza pinned their photos to her board, their smiling faces mocking her. She called Sam Torres, her partner. 3 deaths, Sam. All bought moonglows, all sick for weeks. This isn't random. Sam's voice was grim. "Ethan's stall is clean, Eliza. We checked. No chemicals, no nothing." But Eliza's gut screamed otherwise. She headed to Times Square, the neon lights harsh against her headache. Ethan's stall was mobbed, his moonglows selling faster than ever. He was there, arranging blooms, his hands steady, his smile practiced. "Detective," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "Back for another flower?" Eliza's eyes narrowed. "People are dying, Ethan. Your flowers are the link." His smile didn't falter. "Flowers don't kill, detective. Maybe it's the city air." She leaned closer, catching that sharp scent again. "Where do you get these moonglows?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. "A supplier in Jersey. Nothing special." But his eyes flicked away. Just for a second. Eliza knew a liar when she saw one. That night, she drove to Brooklyn Greenhouse, Ethan had mentioned. The owner, a grizzled man named Carl, was cagey, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Ethan picks his own stock," he said, avoiding her gaze. "Those white ones? Never seen him before." Eliza pushed, but Carl clammed up. She noticed a locked shed behind the greenhouse, its windows blacked out. "What's in there?" she asked. Carl's face tightened. "Storage. Nothing for you." She left, but not before snapping a photo of the shed. Back at her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. "Stop sniffing around, Hart." Her heart raced. She checked her locks, the moonglow scent still in her nose, like it was following her. The next morning, another death hit the news. A tech CEO found slumped in his office, a wilted moonglow on his desk. He'd bought it 34 days ago, his assistant said, and had been sick for weeks. Headaches, dizziness, just like the others. Eliza's board was filling up. 4 photos now, all smiling, all dead. She called the lab, demanding answers. The tech's voice was tense. The toxin's slow-acting, detective. It builds up in the blood, shuts down organs over weeks. We're still identifying it. Eliza's mind raced. A slow poison hidden in a flower's scent. She needed to get into Ethan's supply chain, but first, she went back to Caroline's gallery. The assistant handed over a security tape from a month ago. It showed Ethan not just signing the guest book, but lingering, watching Caroline with a strange intensity. Eliza's next stop was Ethan's stall, this time with a warrant. She and Sam tore through it, finding nothing but flowers and receipts. Ethan watched, his arms crossed, his smile gone. "You're wasting your time," he said. But Eliza noticed a small vial under the counter, half hidden by petals. She bagged it, ignoring Ethan's sudden stillness. At the precinct, the lab confirmed it was a solvent, not the toxin, but it was odd. Why would a florist need it? Eliza dug into Ethan's past, pulling records from her database. He'd grown up in upstate New York, his family tied to a small flower farm, but there was a gap, a decade where Ethan vanished. No records, no trace. Then a news article, his parents' farm was shut down after a chemical spill scandal linked to a company called NexGen Labs. Eliza's pulse quickened. Chemicals. That night, she staked out the Brooklyn greenhouse, the shed her target. The city was quiet, the air heavy with rain. She picked the lock, her flashlight sweeping the dark. Inside were crates of moonglows, their petals glowing faintly, and a shelf of unmarked vials, their labels scratched off. She grabbed one, but a noise made her freeze, a creak from outside. She ducked behind a crate, her hand on her gun. Footsteps circled the shed, slow and deliberate. A shadow passed the window, then vanished. Her phone buzzed. A new text. "You're digging your own grave." She slipped out, the vial in her pocket, her heart pounding. Back at her apartment, she couldn't sleep, the scent of moonglows clinging to her clothes. The next day, she met Sam at the precinct. She said, "NexGen Labs." She showed him the article. Ethan's family lost everything because of them. He's got a motive. Sam frowned. "Revenge? With flowers?" Eliza nodded. "The victims, Caroline, the lawyer, the CEO, they're all linked to big money, big companies. Maybe NexGen is one of them." She sent the vial to the lab, but her phone buzzed again, an unknown caller. She answered, and a distorted voice hissed, "Leave the flowers alone, detective, or you're next." The line went dead. Eliza stared at the board, Ethan's face now pinned beside the victims. The moonglow was a weapon, its poison slow and deadly, and Ethan was no innocent florist. Someone was protecting him, and they were watching her every move. New York City's lights burn bright, but in April 2025, a shadow is spreading. The moonglow, a flower that bewitched the city with its shimmering petals and haunting scent, is a silent killer. Its poison works slowly, creeping into the blood over weeks, stealing breath and life a month after its first whiff. 4 deaths now. Caroline Reed, a gallery owner, a lawyer, a hedge fund manager, a tech CEO, all linked to Ethan Gray's flower stall in Times Square. Detective Eliza Hart is chasing a truth that feels like chasing smoke. The lab found toxins in the petals, but not enough to convict Ethan. His past, a family farm ruined by a chemical scandal, hints at revenge, but he's always one step ahead. And someone's watching Eliza, their warnings sharp as knives. Welcome back to the Poison Bloom, where every scent hides a secret. Eliza stood in her precinct office, the city's pulse throbbing outside. The vial from Ethan's greenhouse shed sat on her desk, its contents still a mystery. The lab was slow, but the preliminary report was chilling. The moonglow's toxin wasn't natural, it was synthetic, building up in the body until it stopped the heart. Caroline and the others had been exposed for weeks. Their symptoms, headaches, nausea, ignored until it was too late. Eliza's board was a grim gallery, 4 photos, 4 lives, all tied to Ethan's flowers. She'd seen him on the gallery security tape, lingering near Caroline, his eyes too focused, too cold. His family's ruin at the hands of NexGen Labs was motive, but she needed proof. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're close, but not close enough." Her blood ran cold. Whoever was watching her knew her every move. She drove to Times Square, the neon lights harsh against her lingering headache. Ethan's stall was open, moon glows glowing under the awning. The city had started whispering about the deaths, and customers were scarce, but Ethan's smile was unshaken. "Detective Hart," he said, clipping a rose. "You're scaring my business away." Eliza's voice was steel. "Your flowers are killing people, Ethan. I found a vial in your supplier's shed. Care to explain?" His eyes flickered, just for a moment. "Fertilizer," he said, shrugging. "Nothing illegal about that." But Eliza caught a tremor in his hand. She leaned closer, the moonglow scent sharp in her nose. "NexGen," she said. "Your family lost everything because of them? Is that why you're doing this?" Ethan's smile froze, but he said nothing, turning away. That night, Eliza went to her childhood home in upstate New York, needing a break from the city's weight. Her grandparents' farmhouse was a haven, its garden bursting with color. But as she walked through the yard, her heart stopped. A cluster of moonglows swayed in the breeze, their petals glowing under the moonlight. Her grandmother, a spry woman in her 70s, was tending them, humming softly. "Eliza, dear, aren't they beautiful?" Eliza's voice shook. "Grandma, those flowers are dangerous. People are dying." Her grandmother laughed, brushing dirt from her hands. "Nonsense. We've grown these since I was a girl. I even cook with them. Stew, tea, you name it. Never hurt us." Eliza stared, her mind racing. If the flowers weren't naturally toxic, what was killing people? Back in the city, Eliza reopened the case with a new fire. She called Sam Torres, her partner. "The moonglow's not the problem," she said. "It's something Ethan's doing to them." Sam was skeptical. "You sure? Your grandparents eat the damn things." Eliza nodded. "It's a chemical, Sam. Something he's adding." She sent the vial from the shed to the lab, demanding a rush analysis. Meanwhile, she dug deeper into NexGen Labs. The company was a giant, tied to pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and a scandal that had bankrupted Ethan's family farm. Court records showed a lawsuit. Ethan's parents had claimed NexGen's chemicals poisoned their land, but they'd lost, ruined by legal fees. Her pulse quickened. The victims, Carolyn, the lawyer, the CEO, were all linked to NexGen's board or investors. Was Ethan targeting them? She returned to Ethan's stall, this time at dusk, the square quieter than usual. He was closing up, his movements quick, nervous. She watched from across the street, her camera ready. He slipped into an alley behind the stall, carrying a small bag. She followed, her footsteps silent on the pavement. The alley led to a locked door, a faint light glowing inside. Eliza picked the lock, her heart pounding. The room was small, cluttered with vials, sprayers, and moonglows in pots. A notebook lay open, scrawled with chemical formulas and names. Caroline Reed, the lawyer, the CEO. Eliza's breath caught. She snapped photos, but a shadow moved behind her. She spun, her gun drawn, but the alley was empty. Her phone buzzed, a new text. "You found the garden. Now what?" She froze, the vial from the shed heavy in her pocket. The lab called that night. "The vial's a synthetic neurotoxin," the text said. "Mixed with a solvent, it's odorless, airborne, sprayed on flowers, it could kill slowly over weeks." Eliza's mind reeled. Ethan was spraying the moonglows, turning them into weapons. But why? She drove to NexGen's headquarters, a glass tower in Manhattan. The security guard turned her away, but she saw a familiar face in the lobby. A man from Caroline's gallery tape, shaking hands with Ethan. He was a NexGen executive. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown caller. She answered, and a distorted voice hissed. "You're digging too deep." The city Hart, that never the line sleeps is deadened. holding its breath. She looked up, the It's tower's late lights April glaring 2025, down. and Times Ethan Square's wasn't just a neon glow florist, feels he like was a a warning. killer with a The plan, moonglow flower, and someone was once New York's protecting him. darling, The is a moonglow slow scent poison. lingered in her It's mind. sent seeping into Poison lungs, she couldn't building escape. toxins over weeks until hearts stop. 4 deaths. Caroline Reed, a gallery owner, a lawyer, a hedge fund manager, a tech CEO, all linked to Ethan Gray's flower stall. Detective Eliza Hart is closing in, but the truth is slippery. A vial from Ethan's greenhouse shed holds a neurotoxin sprayed on the flowers to kill. His family's ruin by NexGen Labs points to revenge, but someone's watching Eliza. Their threat sharp as thorns. A notebook in Ethan's secret room listed victims' names, and now Eliza's on that list. Welcome back to the Poison Bloom, where every petal is a step closer to death. Eliza stood in her precinct office, the city's pulse a distant hum. The notebook from Ethan's hidden room was on her desk, its pages damning. Names, dates, chemical formulas, all tied to NexGen Labs elite. Caroline Reed was an investor's wife. The lawyer defended NexGen in court. The CEO sat on their board. Ethan wasn't just a florist, he was a hunter. The lab confirmed the vial's contents, a synthetic neurotoxin, odorless when mixed with a solvent, deadly over weeks. Eliza's board was a map of vengeance, but she needed more. She called Sam Torres, her partner. "Ethan's targeting NexGen," she said. "We need his supplier records." Sam's voice was tense. "He's lawyered up, Eliza. Stalls shut down, and he's gone quiet." She drove to Times Square, the square eerily empty without Ethan's stall. The city was buzzing with fear. Moonglow sales had crashed, and the mayor was pushing for a ban. Eliza's headache throbbed, the flower scent still haunting her. She tracked down NexGen's headquarters, a glass fortress in Manhattan. The executive she'd seen with Ethan on Caroline's gallery tape, Richard Klein, NexGen's CFO, was her target. She flashed her badge, but security stonewalled her. "Mr. Klein's unavailable," the guard said, his eyes cold. Eliza lingered outside, watching Klein leave in a black SUV. She tailed him, her heart pounding, to a warehouse in Long Island City. The place was fortified, guards at every corner. Klein met a man in a cap. "Ethan." Eliza snapped photos, but her phone buzzed. "You're out of your depth, Hart." Back at the precinct, Sam handed her a file. "NexGen's records," he said, "buried in shell companies, but Ethan's farm supplied their test crops years ago. After the scandal, they cut him off." Eliza's mind raced. Ethan's parents lost everything in that lawsuit. Land, money, health. The victims were NexGen's inner circle. She pulled up Klein's profile. He'd signed off on the chemical spill that ruined Ethan's farm. Eliza's phone rang, an unknown number. She answered, and Ethan's voice, calm but sharp, came through. "Stop digging, detective, or you'll be next." The line went dead. Eliza's hands shook. She checked her apartment's locks, the moonglow scent still in her nose, like a ghost that wouldn't leave. That night, she staked out Ethan's apartment, a rundown walk-up in Brooklyn. Lights were off, but a shadow moved inside. She crept closer, her gun ready. The door was ajar, and she slipped in, her flashlight sweeping the dark. The place was sparse, flower crates, a desk, a map pinned to the wall with red marks. Caroline's gallery, the lawyer's office, the CEO's penthouse. Eliza's name was there too, circled in red. A noise made her spin, a creak from the hallway. She hid behind a crate, her breath shallow. Ethan stepped in, his face pale, a vial in his hand. He didn't see her, but he muttered, "They'll pay. All of them." He left and he followed her, her heart racing. He was heading back to the warehouse. At the warehouse, Eliza watched from her car. Ethan and Klein argued, their voices low, but heated. "You're late," Klein hissed. Ethan tossed him a bag. "You got your batch, now leave me alone." Eliza's camera caught it all, but a guard spotted her, his flashlight blinding. She floored it, tires screeching, her phone buzzing with another text. "Run all you want, you can't hide." Back at the precinct, the lab called with a breakthrough. The neurotoxin matched a NexGen patent, buried after the scandal. Ethan had access to it through his family's old contracts. Eliza's board filled in. Ethan was weaponizing the moonglows, spraying them with NexGen's own poison to kill its elite. But why was Klein working with him? Eliza confronted Klein at NexGen's office, her badge out and photos in hand. "You knew Ethan. He's killing your people." Klein's face was stone. No comment. But his eyes betrayed him. Fear. Guilt. Eliza pushed. "Your company ruined his family. He's coming for you next." Klein stood, his voice low. "You don't know what you're up against, detective." She left, but not before slipping a tracker on his SUV. That night she followed it to a pier in Staten Island. Ethan was there, loading crates onto a boat. Eliza crept closer, her gun drawn, but a hand grabbed her from behind. "Bad move," a voice whispered. Not Ethan's. She spun, but the world went black. When she came to, she was in a dark room, hands tied. Ethan stood over her, his eyes cold. "You should have listened," he said, holding a moonglow, its scent suffocating. Eliza had spun, the toxin was already in her system. She fought the ropes, her voice steady. You're killing innocents, Ethan. Caroline wasn't NexGen. He laughed bitterly. Collateral, like my parents. Footsteps approached. Klein, his face grim. Finish it. Eliza's heart pounded. She was out of time, and the moonglow's poison was in her blood. The city's lights flickered outside, but no one was coming to save her. The air is thick with secrets, and New York City is choking on them. It's late April 2025, and the moonglow flower, once a symbol of beauty in Times Square, is a death sentence. Its scent carries a slow poison, building in the blood over weeks, killing its victims a month later. 5 deaths now. Caroline Reed, a gallery owner, a lawyer, a hedge fund manager, a tech CEO, and a journalist, all tied to Ethan Gray's flower stall. Detective Eliza Hart is trapped, her hands bound in a dark room, the moonglow's scent suffocating her. Ethan, the florist with a vendetta, and Richard Klein, NexGen Labs CFO, stand over her, their plan unraveling. The toxin in the flowers was NexGen's own, turned into a weapon by Ethan to avenge his family's ruin. But someone's pulling the strings, and Eliza's running out of time. Welcome to the final chapter of The Poison Bloom, where the truth cuts deeper than any thorn. Eliza's head spun, the neurotoxin from the moonglow already working its way into her system. Her wrists burned against the ropes, but she kept her eyes on Ethan. You're killing innocents, she rasped. Caroline wasn't NexGen. Ethan's face twisted, his voice bitter. She was married to one of them. They all deserve it. Klein, pacing, snapped, Enough, Ethan. Finish her. But Eliza caught a flicker in Klein's eyes. Fear, not control. She forced her voice steady. Who's calling the shots, Klein? Not you. He froze, his jaw tight. Ethan laughed, holding the flower closer to her face. You're smart, detective, but too late. Eliza's vision blurred, but she saw her chance. A loose nail in the floorboard. She worked it against the ropes, her movements slow, hidden. Back in the city, Sam Torres was frantic. Eliza hadn't checked in, and the precinct was buzzing with news. The mayor had banned moonglows, but another body had dropped, a journalist who'd been digging into NexGen Labs. Sam pulled the lab reports, his hands shaking. The neurotoxin matched a NexGen patent, buried after the scandal that destroyed Ethan's family farm. He called Eliza's phone, but it went to voicemail. Her last message was a photo from the Staten Island pier, Ethan and Klein loading crates. Sam grabbed his badge and headed to the pier, his gut screaming. He alerted the FBI, sharing Eliza's evidence. The notebook, the vial, the NexGen connection. The moonglow wasn't just a flower. It was a murder weapon. And Ethan was its architect. Eliza's ropes gave way, the nail cutting her skin. She lunged, knocking the flower from Ethan's hand. Klein drew a gun, but Eliza was faster, tackling him to the ground. The weapon skidded across the floor. Ethan dove for it, but Eliza kicked it away, her head pounding from the toxin. Why, Ethan? Why kill them this way? His eyes blazed. NexGen poisoned my family's land, our lives. They laughed while we starved. I used their own poison against them. Eliza's heart raced. And Klein? Ethan's voice dropped. He's their puppet, but he's not the top. Before she could press, sirens wailed outside. Ethan bolted, leaving Klein pinned under her knee. The FBI stormed the pier, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Sam found Eliza, her face pale, her breathing shallow. You're okay, he said, cutting her free. She handed him the notebook, her voice weak. Ethan's targeting NexGen's elite. Klein knows who's behind it. The FBI arrested Klein, his face ashen as they cuffed him. Ethan was gone, vanished into the night, but the crates on the boat held moonglows and vials of the neurotoxin. Eliza was rushed to the hospital, the toxin's effects fading with treatment. From her bed, she called the lab. Match the toxin to NexGen's records, she said. The tech's voice was grim. It's theirs, detective. A banned compound shelved after the scandal. Sam brought the final piece. A deposition from Ethan's parents' lawsuit naming NexGen CEO Daniel Voss as the mastermind behind the chemical spill. Voss was untouchable, his influence shielding him from justice. Eliza's board at the precinct filled in. Caroline's husband, the lawyer, the CEO, all were Voss's allies or obstacles. Ethan had sprayed the Moonglows with NexGen's own poison, sold to them as a twisted revenge. Klein confessed in custody, desperate to save himself. He said Voss paid me to keep Ethan in line. He wanted his enemies gone, but Ethan went rogue, hitting anyone tied to NexGen. Eliza's blood boiled. Voss had used Ethan's pain, turning him into a weapon. She tracked Ethan to his old family farm upstate, a crumbling relic of his past. The fields were overgrown, but moonglows bloomed wild, untouched by poison. Ethan stood among them, his face hollow. "It's over," Eliza said, her gun steady. Ethan didn't run. "They took everything," he said, his voice breaking. "I wanted them to feel it." Eliza lowered her weapon. "You became them, Ethan. A killer." He looked at the flowers, tears falling. "My parents grew these. They were harmless until NexGen." He handed her a vial, the last of the toxin. "Voss is the real poison." The FBI swarmed, cuffing him. Ethan didn't resist, his fight gone. Voss was arrested the next day, the notebook and Klein's confession enough to bury him. The Moonglow ban held, but the flowers themselves were cleared. Only Ethan's sprayed batches were deadly. The headlines screamed, "Florist's Revenge Rocks New York." Eliza stood outside the precinct, the city's lights softer now. The Moonglow's scent lingered in her memory, a reminder of how beauty could hide death. Ethan was sentenced, his vendetta over, but Voss's trial loomed, a bigger fight. Eliza's grandparents still grew moonglows, their stew untouched by poison. She smiled faintly, thinking of their laughter. The flowers weren't the enemy, just the man who'd turned them into one. New York moved on, but Eliza knew the city's shadows held more secrets, waiting to bloom.